Hello, good day everybody. DMGeezerjim here, working on more classic reviews, informational videos, and the like. This is part of my Planescape series. I got to do a little bit of a disclaimer here. I kind of put a hold on making videos for Planescape so we could wait for the official release to see what the 5th edition stuff had to say. I am a 5th edition dungeon master. I DM 3 online campaigns, 2 live campaigns as the local game store per week. Well, every other week at the game store, but I do a lot of DMing, and it's all 5th edition. So I have to say that disclaimer up now. I am a 5th edition dungeon master, but I rely heavily on classic content. I don't necessarily, I can't say I'll say it. I'm not satisfied with the depth of information that they give us on some of the subjects with just the 5th edition release. So I work backwards through the other editions with what I grew up with and the stuff that's grown up in between to give myself more content, more tools to make more engaging and believable and exciting worlds to play in. So all of that kind of hoodoo heyday gone out the way. 5th edition has released. It has dropped. The 5th edition Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse, the box set, the book set, whatever you want to call it, however you ended up acquiring it, consisted of 3 different parts. You had the Sigil and the Outlands book. You had a monster compendium, which basically a monster manual light, and then you had an adventure book. 30 seconds. You get pretty good information on Sigil, some usable locations in the city, and then we get the Outlands. And the Outlands information is primarily about the neutral plane called the Outlands, a few of the realms and locations within there, and then a focus on the gate towns. And that's it. Our adventures in the multiverse, according to 5th edition, are limited to the Outlands and limited to Sigil. My last video, we spent a lot of time talking about just the inner planes, just the utilization of the elemental planes as adventure locations. We haven't even touched on the outer planes, each of the alignments and all the powers and the deities and this, that, and the other that are connected to the outer planes. They didn't give us much to work with in 5th edition. Every single entry is going to refer you to the Dungeon Master's Guide, which will give you a paragraph to 2 paragraphs about the outer plane. So we're still in the exact same spot we were previously to Planescape. D&D 5th edition has not equipped us as dungeon masters. The 5th edition has not equipped us to execute and host and build adventures in the outer planes, in the multiverse. So that helps us. That helps me guide this series a little bit more. So what I'm going to do in this series moving forward, we're going to break down each of the outer planes in accordance with the 5th edition's version of the Gate Town. From there, we'll look at the original version of the Gate Town. The 5th edition information is given to us both about the Gate Town, the surrounding region to the Gate Town, and the small bit of information that's given to us in the other 5th edition documentation. Then we'll rely on the 2nd edition Planescape books to inform us of what's on the other side of the portal. Long story short, TLDR, 5th edition gets us to the portals and leaves us there empty-handed. It's going to get your party from Sigil to Automata, but it's not going to really give you anything to build within Mechanus itself. Tiny little snippets within the adventure book proper, but nowhere near enough, in my opinion. So, you know what? But guess what? We don't have to make it up. It's all sitting there. It's sitting in our older editions, sitting in our older source books, so that's what we're gonna refer to. So one of the cool things, they did give us a nice new pretty updated map for the Outlands that came with the 5th edition box set. Pretty, very pretty. This is, I believe, still D. Terlizzi that is responsible for all the art, I believe. Let's see. Infinite scale locations shown relative to each other. So it's still kind of adhering to the idea that the plane, the Outlands, are infinite in nature. No one knows how long it's going to take to get from one point to another. It takes as long as it takes, and it is what it is. So you still have that theme playing through for 5th edition Outlands. One line counters that was a little bit disappointing. 5th edition book did talk about how each of the gate towns is located equidistant from the central spire and each other around the cosmic wheel. So we are fixing the gate towns in a physical location, which I don't necessarily agree with. Do what you want to with your campaigns. I'm leaving them however far they are is however far they need to be. But so let's keep things simple, so I don't end up talking too randomly. I want to keep things focused and tight. Today we're going to talk about Rigus leading to Acheron. Okay, we're going to go through the outer planes, starting in the lawful side and rotating all around. We're starting at 9 o'clock. We're going to end it at 8 o'clock. Think of it that way, with a couple extras thrown in. Don't know why. Honestly, I do. Acheron is one of my favorite planes. That's something I know about, so I can, and I'm a big fan of it, so I can speak a little bit more confidently about it. Acheron is considered in the old school lawful neutral with evil bend. This is the plane of unadulterated warfare. Battle for battle's sake. Not for glory, not to die heroically, to go to the halls of Valhalla, but we live for war for its own sake. Second edition puts a lot of our humanoid races there. Fifth edition is going to give us a lot more leeway. Do what you want. Everyone fights wars. It is what it is. That does bring me to one point. There is zero true mention about any of the powers, deities, gods, choose your term here, about any of their placement within any of the planes. Save a couple of the Forgotten Realms-based deities, we do not have the reliance or the access to Earth mythology anymore, to literary mythology. World mythology has ceased to exist. Your Celtic pantheons aren't there. Your Egyptian pantheons aren't there. Greek, Nordic, all of those pantheons aren't here. They're not exclusively removed, but you're not given the information. So you can rely on the second edition Planescape info. You can make it up however you want to do. You have the freedom as a dungeon master. But yeah, I did want to put that big aside there. As I speak about deities and gods and how they're placed on any of these planes, the outer planes, they're going to be in direct reference to second edition material. Fifth edition does not codify the placement of deities or powers outside a few of the in-game ones, like the Mind Flayer deity, the Semania, the Lord of the Lizard. The exceptions, there are a couple exceptions, and they're detailed, but so understand up front. So Rigus, this is what we're looking at. We're going to look at this little bitty section right here. Well, little bitty being infinite layers, but anyway, infinite plane. Rigus is the gate town to Acheron. It's located on the 9 o'clock point on the wheel, surrounded by craggy grounds, broken terrain, and all kind of that stuff. Let's see exactly what Planescape is going to tell us about Rigus. Okay. Real quick, just so you know, 5th edition D&D Beyond is one of my primary access points. This is what I use to run campaigns for ease of use. This is what you got in the box set. You got Sigil in the Outlands, which is information about, this is a review, I guess you could say, in addition before we get into Acheron. Character stuff, decent information about Sigil, good information about Sigil. I tip my hat. They did a good job about giving us 90% accurate and compliant Sigil information. Chapter 3, The Outlands, is about equivalent, honestly, to the player's primer to The Outlands, a book that we reviewed earlier in this video series. If you have this book or you have access to this book, you have more about the Outlands and the Gate Towns than what the 5th edition release is going to give you. Okay. Not being critical, just being honest. You know, information is information. There is some given in Sigil in the Outlands, but there's more given in the Outlands and beyond. The player's primer to the Outlands. So it gives us a picture of the Outlands and the outer planes through the view on each of the gate towns. So that's where we're going to start. If you're a 5th edition DM or a 5th edition player coming into Planescape, this is going to be your first view of an outer plane, and that's going to be through that. So let's go ahead and hit Rigus real quick. Gate destination, infinite battlefield of Acheron. If I click on the link for Acheron, it's going to take me to this one little 2-paragraph. So we're going to go with the official 5e lore. Acheron has 4 layers, each made of enormous iron cubes floating in airy void. Incorrect. Well, I guess current, but out of lore. Sometimes the cubes collide. Echoes of past collisions linger throughout the plane, mingling with sounds of armies colliding. That's the nature of Acheron's strife and war, as the spirits of the fallen soldiers join in endless battles against orcs devoted to Gromsh, goblinoids loyal to Maglubliet, and legions assembled by other warmongering gods. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's what 5e gives us for Acheron. Between what we got on the briefest mention here, but this is why your gate towns are going to be important through the 5th edition book. This is giving your players the look and the feel of the plane that lies beyond the portal. Okay, the fortress city of Rigus, however you want to pronounce it. It represents a gigantic, over-defended, overbuilt military encampment. Everyone that's there, short of visitors, is given some sort of rank. It's a militant society. It's a militant place. So it's a strict military hierarchy. We kind of talked about that. The gate is actually located underneath the city itself in a large cavern. The central plaza of Rigus can descend down mechanically, magically, and allow armies to go to and from the gate. But other than that, you have to go through this fortress town to get to the primary gate to Acheron. The populace is very regimented. You have a magic symbol that denotes your rank and station. If you're a visitor, everyone's going to know that you're a visitor. Non-sapient creatures may not have a rank. You have the bunkers, the crown, the final procession. So that's it. You're given a little bit of information. It's got a warlike feel in Rigus, a permanent military encampment linked to the plane of battle and bloodshed. It's constructed in tiers on a fortified hill. It's a monument to military strength. 8 octagonal iron walls, menacing and impenetrable, divide the town into 7 stacked rings, festooned with banners of war. Siege weapons, advanced siege weapons, are anchored to their angular battlements. It's all about a war camp. 6 generals, each in charge of a tier, and the 7th one is General Brog, a lawful neutral hobgoblin warlord, who's in charge of the entire encampment. Okay, that's a low stat block for extra planar. That's going to be my first thing here. Is we got a CR6 responsible for running a gate town. No, ain't gonna work. Jack that sucker up a couple tiers. If you want to start at Hobgoblin Warlord and add a couple legendary action stuff, that would be a good place to go. So yes, I think that's going to be something true across all the gate towns in order to keep things relevant with the broken power curve in 5e. We're not paying attention to what's on the other side of the gate. Okay? The other side of the gate is some horrible, heinous stuff over in Acheron that can absolutely easily stomp General Brog and his boys. So you need to upgun General Brog, and in most cases, upgun the commanding forces of each gate town. Okay. So, the conflict is given right here. Before we go too far, so I don't end up repeating myself in every video, just understand as the first part in this series, the gate towns are exactly that. They are settlements that have sprung up around a permanent gate leading to a specific outer plane. Very rarely do you need a key to use that particular portal. It's considered a permanent portal. Now, the problem is the life around the portal and the gate town itself begins to represent the other side of the portal. This is a manifestation. In this case, Rigus is a manifestation of lawful neutral with an evil tendency on a physical plane of neutrality. So if it tips too far into lawful neutral with evil tendency, the town of Rigus itself will shift into Acheron. Whether it joins another floating cube or becomes its own floating cube is up to you as a DM. We'll get to that when we get to the other side of the portal. So there's always got to be a balancing point with every one of your gate towns. For every action, there's the opposite to keep it balanced. So consider every gate town 70% to 60% the way the other plane is. But there's enough opposing, there's enough neutral, it doesn't have to always be neutral, but there's enough neutralizing that alignment to keep your gate town anchored within the outlands. That's the whole key to the gate towns. Gate towns shift all the time. Oh, shit. That was weird. Can you guys see me? Hear me here? I had a monitor restart. Oh, no. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, we're still good. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. My monitor went to sleep mode on me. Strange. Anyway, uh, so your gate towns are going to definitely be, you know, semi-permanent fixtures if you want your players to have a greater impact on the world around them, if you want your players to be able to move between, actually shift things around, whether they're actions or if you need to shift a gate town for plot purposes, it can be done. So make sure that you're going through into the depth on reading on each of your gate towns to understand what the balancing point is. Whether you're using the 5th edition version or the 2nd edition, it's kind of the same concept, okay? So, back over to some visuals, less of my face. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go with a left-right comparison. On the left, we'll have the player's primer to the Outland. I'll key up the appropriate location. Which one were we looking at? Rigus here. Let me look for Rigus. And 23, there we are. Let me just go to page 23. It'll be faster that way. So I don't have to go clickety. Page 23. Ribcage leads us to Rigus. Estimated population 20,000. Population isn't given in 5e. Up to you. Huge permanent military encampment. Same. The gate to Acheron is far below the surface of the earth. Built into the crown, there's a mile-long staircase. Same. Although there's not a staircase in the 5e, there's an elevator. Same basic idea. Huge portal that's made out of bones that looks like a gigantic cat's eye. The chamber has other entrances that lead to other places into the underground. Same on both sides. Consistent reproduction. Whether you're using 2nd edition or 5e, you have the same info. So the one thing that we get here, a tiny bit of the information about Rigus, is that the conflict is with the warlord. The conflict is with General Brog. He's the guy that doesn't like war all the time. He's the one that keeps the town from tipping over from neutral ground into Acheron, okay? So the difference over here is the 2nd edition gives you a little bit more information that the warriors, Nagaro is one of the major generals now, female warrior from Taladus, the world of Kryn, who's a paladin who's got some good in her heart that balances out. So whichever one you use, it's the same basic thing that's keeping Rigus anchored to the Outlands. The commander of the town, the commander of the entire city, has good or has neutral in their heart enough to keep it anchored. If there's any change in the command, the town could very easily shift over into Acheron. Okay, local sites are going to be kind of the same thing as far as. Actually, there's not as much information given for local sites in the 2nd edition. The site itself, the city itself, is your primary site. So we talk about the gate, the regional effects, noteworthy sites, the bunkers. You don't have inns, you don't have taverns, you have bunkers. You go sleep in a cramped-ass tunnel. The crown is the big, tall building that sinks into the ground. The final procession is an event that happens. Couple little bitty things. And, one good thing that we'll talk for the 5th edition version, it does give you a couple adventure hooks, whether you want to use them randomly or whether you want to look at it and go, hey, that sounds fun, and build it into something. That's it. You get a couple little ideas, description of both sides. So we're done with the gate town, right? What's on the other side of the gate town? That's mainly what I wanted to talk about. So I apologize. I had to get the formatting out in the first half. Rigus leads to Acheron, okay? And I already read you the 5th edition version of it, so we're not going to worry about the 5th edition at this point, because that's where they leave us. They leave us empty here. So for this point, I'm looking at the D&D Planescape box set, the original 1993 Monty Cook release, and what does it say about Acheron? Here's the safest place for a cutter to go if they really want to deal with the fiends of the lower planes. It's a plane of enforced order where conformity is more important than good. The mercy killers of Teleburg, the fiends of Acheron, aren't that evil. It's only the rigorous adherence to order that upsets those who lack discipline. Okay. So Acheron is considered a lower plane in regards to being somewhat evil, but it's considered the most orderly and safest plane in regards to being a lower plane. That's what we're getting first and foremost. If we look out here on the cosmic wheel, let me pull up the 5e version of it. I'm sorry. Oops. Bad. Let's go desktop. D&D. Plan. The old map, just for fun. It gives us a little bit more of an artistic rendering of each of the planes. So Acheron, as you're seeing, is this. It does look like a bunch of cubes and nasty layers. So you can look at the map and go, that place doesn't look fun, because it's not. It's considered a lower plane, bordering on evil. The one next door to it is hell, like the nine layers of hell, Bator, whatever you want to call it, followed by Gehenna, followed by Hades, followed by Carcerai, followed by the Abyss, I think, and then we had and then Pandemonium, then blah blah. So the lower planes still being kind of primarily evil. So whatever your map is, it is what it is. So this is where we got to remember planar terminology in relation to second edition, and it's not contested in fifth, so I guess it's still canon. You have a plane. A plane in most cases is infinite. It can be bounded as per third edition, in which case it's specific to say it is not infinite. Secondly, within planes, there may be layers. Layers themselves can also be infinite in nature, but they can be bounded. Layers exist as part of a plane. And within planes, there are things called regions, which is if you're dealing with an infinite space, you don't necessarily have a map or a globe, but there might be a specific chunk of a layer or plane that is specific to one thing. So that'll be defined as a region. And then you end up with location or site, which is a specific, think of it as a dungeon, a castle, a city, an adventure-specific location that you'll look at, okay? So those will be the terms that we're using as we go through, the second edition books, just for completionist sake. Single page, Acheron, lawful neutral. Okay, 4 layers. The first layer is Avalis, the battle layer. This is where you have the big gigantic cubes floating through space that run into each other. And that's really very well, this is a great picture of that. This is, by the way, we're looking at the Planes of Law, the second book dedicated to Acheron. So it's like you have a sniff in 5th edition, and then you have a taste with the box set, and then you get the whole meal with the next box set, with the next level. Planes of Law gives you the full meal, if you will. Okay, so, anyway. Where was I? My apologies there. Going through things. So, yeah, the 4 layers of Avalis, Thuldanin, Tintibulus, and Acanthus. All layers drift in a void of air that supports life and flight. Gravity here conforms to the shape of the solid, always pointing towards the center. Thus, armies can range on all 6 sides of one of the immense cubes, or they can walk on both the top and bottom of one of Acanthus' drifting plates. Travelers in Avalis and Thuldanin must be aware of collisions between the cubes, since everything between the two masses is crushed. Approaching cubes can usually be seen a day or two in advance, giving enough warning to escape, or enough warning for the 2 armies to form up while the cubes crash into each other and jump across. Cool. Native inhabitants: Archerai, Batizu, Imps, Modrons, Rakshasa, rust monsters, and Yugalas are found on Acheron. Only Yugalas and Rakshasa are truly native. Others come here to recruit or feed. Most of the orc pantheon lives here, and that was amended with the box set with the addition of Bladelings. Bladelings are absolutely native to one of the most hostile environments in the game, the plane of the layer of Acanthus, and we'll get to that here in a second. Okay, so that's it. So the first layer is the big cubes that float through space. Battle cubes, man. Armies. Some of the cubes are so big that you have armies that are on opposite sides that fight each other at the seam. pushing back and forth as gravity. You talk about a weird front line. So from gameplay mechanics, this is one of the plus sides of using Acheron for campaigns. There's a lot of combat. There's a lot of war. It tends to evil, so it's a lot easier to give your players reasons to engage in stuff here. Whether your campaign is good aligned or evil aligned, whether your campaign is greater or lesser, Acheron provides an adequate battlefield. The second wonderful thing about Acheron as a battlefield is you have a lot of control over the size and space of the area. Everything on the first level of Valis is cube-based. The cubes can be a couple 100 feet across, or they could be a couple dozen miles across. It's up to you on each side. So you're given the opportunity to really handcraft the environments that you need in a simple, very simple mapping format. It's cubes, so that means your maps are all square. Super, super simple for production from as a dungeon master from a just a simple preparation point of view. The larger cubes can have caverns that weave through the inside of them. So then you're also allowing yourself, and as a matter of fact, most of them do. The largest of the cubes, one of the orc cubes, their pantheon resides on one cube, and one of them, and it's completely hollowed out on the inside. So now you're getting into this whole weird kind of underdark roaming through. You can add all of your dungeons in there and all of that. So you got a lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom as a dungeon master to build out most of your combat-heavy encounters are easily placed on Acheron. Its positioning allows for a little bit of respite in regards to its lawful nature. There are certain places where people go and no one fights. This is the trading market, but there's enough exposure to the border area that you can also have the placement of a lot of different extraplanar beings here and have it normal and natural. That's just Avalis. The next level, Thuldanin, is even more entertaining. The idea between Thuldanin is the blocks of this layer, they're pitted in hollow. So big, gigantic blocks, but all of them are hollow, full of pits and crevices and caves and caverns. And their insides are filled with the cast-offs and machineries of war. Flying ships, spelljammers, catapults, cannons, and things yet to be invented on 1,000 prime material worlds all lie in broken, tumbled heaps, slowly transforming into the iron-like stone of this plane. Patrols from Avalis forage for anything useful in their endless wars, and they skirmish with each other over the smallest scraps. There's a 1 in 1,000 chance per day of finding anything useful here. That's the second layer. We'll get to the implications of that as an adventure world here in just a second. The third layer is Tintibulus. This is your pass-through layer. This is your if you need it, it's their layer. Most of your outer planes will give you one or two really cool places, one or two kind of throwaway places. But it still has some unique nature. This layer is barren of life. The only thing to be found are tumbling blocks of geometric solids of all types. Made of gritty stone, they collide and fracture along crystalline faults, spawning yet smaller solids to join the planar dance. A few daring wizards can be found here conducting research possible only in this barren void. So if you need a place for Mordenkainen to be hanging out, if you need a place for Igwilv to be hanging out, or the guy that's actually part of it, Elminster, whichever mage you want, Tintibulus can serve as that strange, weird backdrop. Why are we here? Because this is the only place I can safely do this. But meanwhile, that's not important. I brought you here for yada yada. However you wanted to use Tintibulus. The fourth one, Alcanthus, is probably the least useful to players except for extreme circumstances. Okay? Alcanthus is a layer made of razor-thin plates, some barely an inch across, others miles in width. An endless, infinite void of spinning razor blades. Okay, although plates could support life, it's too dangerous here. The plates slice through the darkness, striking creatures like Vorpal blades, with a +9 to hit, ignoring armor, only dexterity applies. That's crazy, right? Shit. So that's the information that, by the way, I'm sorry, I apologize. I was reading that out of this one. So this is the information that came from the box set for Planescape. Okay, let's take it down a tier further. So let's work backwards. Just again, I want to reinforce the formatting as I go through this. 5th edition gave us the town of Rigus as attached to the Outlands, which gives us a portal to Acheron. Acheron being represented over here on the old school map by number 16. Ironically, the placement on the cosmic wheel for both maps is identical. If we're looking at the original Outland map, here we have Rigus leading to Acheron. The brand new Scutin map, here we have Rigus leading to Acheron. You know, so the 5th edition book did a good job of, the 5th edition release did a good job of maintaining the status quo in the vast majority of cases. Okay, so that's why I really feel confident now in presenting 2nd edition information that you can use to build your campaigns. Presenting sources that you might decide to invest in to expand your knowledge and give you more tools to build your worlds with, right? Okay, so we're going a step further now. We looked at the gate town according to 5th edition. We're ignoring the one paragraph that they told us about in the DM's guide. Well, we're not ignoring. It just wasn't much information. It doesn't countermand anything that we've talked about so far. It all lines up with what else. We verified the gate town of Rigus through the player's power of the Outland. Same stuff. A couple different personalities, but the ideas, the themes are all the same. Then we looked at a quick write-up in the 2nd edition box set. And now we're going to get into the meat, man. Okay, we had our sniff, we had our taste, we've had a bite. And now we're having the whole meal. Acheron, the full plane, the battlefields of Acheron. A lot of information here, not going to go into a ton of it. But just understand that the river Styx here, the river Styx connects to Acheron, so you have a point of connection between all the other lower planes. Let's be upfront and honest about that. It literally meanders. It has a very weird flow pattern over one of the cubes. Okay, so one cube, one of these 6-sided die, has the river Styx flowing over it in random patterns on each side of it that then lead to different places in the lower planes. Interesting, very fun for connectivity. I think I can find some art for it here in a minute. Let me scroll down. They didn't give us a bunch, but is that it? Never mind. I guess I was thinking wrong. There is an interesting hand-drawn picture that shows the cube with the river Styx on. It looks super weird. But so we're not going to worry about that right now. Just know you have the river Styx here. You have 2 permanent portals, tethered and free-floating. Tethered portals are simply those anchored to a specific cube. Free-floating, the natives of the plane have marked each portal and usually have some kind of watch on them. So there are portals that lead to other places within Acheron. Whether it's Sigil, whether it's Outland, whether it's one of the outer planes, whether it's a material plane, we still have allowance for other portals that connect directly to Acheron. That's a plus for the layer. Some planes don't. Some planes don't. So Ovalis has got a lot of the portals to attach, and obviously portals to go from Ovalis to Tintibulus all the way down. Keep that through. Okay. Free floating portals hang at set points in space while blocks slowly orbit around them. Planeswalkers who pass through this type of portal float in space and are slowly drawn to the nearest large block, landing at a pretty dangerous speed, 20 maximum velocity, 20d6 damage. If you have flying or levitation, you can ignore that. But other way, you got to be able to soar through this space to get to that portal, ignoring the gravity of the cube that you're on to get there. Each portal is spherical and activated by touch. There's no gate keys or anything required according to 2nd edition. So you have a little bit more freedom of movement on Ovalis as part of Acheron, the first layer of Acheron, than you have in some of the other places. So keep that in mind. And that, honestly, that holds true for most of your upper layers in an outer plane. The Abyss, the first layer, is called the layer of 1001 portals, the layer of 1001 closets. A couple different names over the years, but it holds the same basic concept. This place connects to a lot of other stuff. Okay, magic conditions. Honestly, you can ignore this if you want. You can invest in this if you want. One thing that was slightly hinted at in 5th edition, but certainly not emphasized, is there is an influence on magic based on at the gate town that you're casting spells at, based on what's the other side of the gate count. For example, Rigus Well, shit, let's just look, just so we're being honest. Uh, Regional effects, regimented populous sites. Was there any? No. Okay, I guess there wasn't anything in Rigus. I was thinking Bedlam earlier, the one that's next to Limbo. Anytime players cast a spell, if it has elemental damage, you roll a die to randomly determine what damage was what element was done instead. So there are some effects that are portrayed on the gate towns that exudes from the city. So keep that in mind there. Sorry, apologies. I just had a ding on my phone. Threw me completely off. But anyway, spell keys, seal wards. This is second edition stuff that didn't carry over to fifth edition. If you want to add more depth, if you want to add more controls, quest MacGuffins, whatever, then you can certainly invest in the spell key system and the gate key system if you want. I'm a proponent of that, but you just got to be you got to be consistent about it. You got to make sure your team's okay with it, your play group. But it is 100% work on your behalf as a dungeon master to enforce some of the changes on Magic on your play group. The next section is talking about the powers and the proxies, the different gods that live here. Again, remember, second edition is reliant on a lot of real-world mythologies to stock the multiverse, in addition to the false ones. You're not going to see most of these in the 5th edition. Very few of them get mentioned at all in Planescape. Li Kung is the only power of the realm of Acheron who's not devoted to war. The celestial bureaucracy part of the Chinese mythology is represented heavily in Planescape. Didn't make the jump to 5e. Didn't say it's not there. Yours to play with. And I want to really emphasize that because we're looking at this place. We're not looking at it right now, but just on the map you have Thebestus. If you know anything about Egyptian mythology, this is an important place. So you're going to put the realm of Thebestus on the map of the Outlands, and they're going to talk about some ancient cultures' powers, but 5th edition doesn't explicitly state yes or no. You have the freedom and flexibility to make that yours as part of your world, as part of your play style, your campaigns, whatever you need to. So, not going to go into a ton of it. You know, we have Li Kung, we have Grumish, we have Malignant, you have Makrit of the three, a bunch of them, a bunch of different, and most of these are gods of war, gods that have an evil sort of bend to them. So, keep that in mind. Deities is up to us as DMs. If you're going to use them, understand who's there, or use your own pantheons, whatever. We have a lot more flexibility now than we used to. There's a little bit about proxies and petitioners. Remember, proxies are people that died. Proxies are super powerful. They're the representatives of power. Petitioners are those that worshiped these gods and these powers or these tenets on the material plane, and when they died, their spirits moved on to here as petitioners. Petitioners strive to be proxies, and then you have all the others. Rogue armies, certain groups that don't necessarily adhere to any one of the warlords or whatever exist, and then we talk a little bit about the factions. Now, each of your Planescape sigil-based factions have pretty heavy representation in the Outer Planes. Most of them claim home territory, claim an Outer Plane as their home turf. Some of them just simply maintain bastions of strength within your realm, and that's what you have here. You have the Mercy Killers that keep a presence here, but they don't necessarily have an influence or any outsized power. But they're really the only sigil faction that has a heavy presence there. By the book, you can do what you want. Just like I said, we're starting with information. So the layers of Aulus, we've been talking about that. The giant death cubes that float through space, covered in various armies that war with each other until the cubes get close enough to collide, and then they fight over each other's cubes. We'll zoom in on this picture. It's kind of a funny yet true representation. On a normal day, these three clusters of dudes on this cube would be fighting each other. But as soon as they see this other cube off in the distance, they start forming up and getting ranks and trying to predict where the cube's going to collide so they can organize. And basically, when these cubes collide, man, these dudes jump across and there's this huge freaking war. It's crazy. It's An insane scene to describe, and an absolutely amazing opportunity if you run a combat heavy campaign to just really go nuts with some encounters. Okay, I mean the war scenarios. Perfect place here without messing with trying to build nation states and governments and politics. Your players want to have a battlefield encounter. Now that Planescape's open, take their butts on out to Avalis and let them fight until their heart's content. And here's the description of a site, the blue cube. This is just a unique example, obviously canonical, but an example of what you can put out there. The blue cube has one inhabitant, an ancient blue dragon who's been cursed to forget his memories on a daily basis, man. This dude's like Memento in dragon form, and he constantly carves into the cube so he can try to remember whatever he needs to remember. And he's got an elaborate lair that's through there. You know, and it's just an adventure hook. It's a MacGuffin. Maybe your party wants to help the dragon. Maybe they need to go fight the dragon. Maybe the dragon has been forced to lose his memory daily because he has some true, deep, dark secret that changes the entire paradigm of your universe. That's what I like about the old Planescape books. Very, very rarely are things given us in binary. This guy has to do this or else. In most situations, they give us just enough to make our own conclusions. And if you're being, you know, if you have a lot of tools in your toolbox, a lot of these conclusions can really link into anything you need to use them for. So you get to use a strange, unusual location, such as the blue cube with a poor memory white dragon. They can become a major non-player character and a campaign driver in your scenarios. Clangor is just not going to spend much time. This is just an ideal. This is your everyday cube. You know, Malakbut, the Goblin guys, Kurogbaya and Nomad Gaia, a bunch of Goblin dudes live on Clangor, and they get ready to go to war on a day in day out basis with Nishrek, where all the orcs are. So Clangor and Nishrek seem to float around at all times, ready to crash into each other. One is orcs, one is goblins, locked in eternal warfare, and it kind of continues from there. And we get descriptions about the towns, the services that are available. How does each region treat outsiders, adventurers, merchants, spies, etc.? So, you know, you're going to get a handful of tools as you look at these to add habitations, add inhabitants. What you're not going to get is 100 NPCs. You're not going to get a bestiary. You're not going to get an order of battle, and you're not going to get a battle map. You're not going to get something that's going to say, these guys are 56 miles from these guys, and there's a 17-room cave system in the mountain between them. That's up to us to create, good or bad. If you're a low prep DM, you might be like, screw a bunch of this shit. If you like building out, man, you have a lot of freedom here. And the plus side, like I said, the geometry of the upper layer simplifies things so nicely. Okay. So let's take a trip down to the next layer. Let's scroll on down. Where'd we go? Thuldanin. This is one, honestly, that can be so much fun. Okay, remember, the first one is the big cubes that are full of bad guys fighting each other on the surface. They have tunnels inside to hide and rest at, but most of the action's on the surface. The second one, nothing lives on the surface. Everything is within the cubes. The cubes can be completely hollowed out. They could be gigantic cavern systems. They could be 90-degree twisted around kind of 3D mazes if you want. Whatever you want to go nuts with in regards to cavern, dungeon, crypt, tomb, Forbidden City designs in regards to the geometry of your maps, you get to do that with Thuldanin, okay? Now, what makes Thuldanin a trip is that, let's read about it. The second layer of Acheron is Thuldanin, the scrap heap for all manner of unusual creations made either through design or accident. The blocks of this plane are all hollow, and their surfaces are pockmarked with pits. These pits lead down a few miles into the interiors of the blocks, which are filled with the broken scraps of thousands of devices, much like some Titan's toy box. Great ships that have burst asunder, toppled buildings, and flying devices of every description can be found within these open blocks. Everything's inoperative, turned to iron-like stone by the long exposure to the magics of the plane. Each month an item is left on this plane, it must succeed a savings throw versus crushing blow or be turned to stone. That's DC checks for us in 5th edition. Based on the item. You can look your stuff up in DM's Guide if you want to adhere to that. You don't have to. You can play storyline stuff. That's just like if your party, oh shit, I left my sword in Thuldanin. How long ago? 3 months. Leave it. It's gone. That's one of the few specific times where you might need that mechanical note. Okay. Has no natives other than the hidden realm of the Duergar. But visitors from Abalis often venture here to seek out something to ensure victory. So Duergar have a realm floating around somewhere in one of the bricks of Thuldanin. Hammergrim. Don't strike out for new territory, but defend home and hearth to the last breath. Fear nothing, for the gods protect the Duergar. This is the Hammergrim is the Duergar city that I was just referring to. It's a realm. It's a section of Thuldanin in one of the cubes that belongs to the Duergar. Information is given here about the community of the town, the god that lives there, and the ruling powers, if you will. So you get some information for, once again, a resting site. This is the way the plane is, but there's one place you can land. No different thing. You know, a lot of times you're like, well, shit, we got the city of brass in the plane of fire. We can plant a cloud city anywhere we need to in the plane of air. You're supposed to put a coral reef with an air bubble in the plane of water. So, you know, mechanically for gameplay purposes, you need to have the one or two places that are within a plane that let your players go in and take a breath and take off the gas mask or take off the lava boots or whatever they're dealing with. I think it's really important, and the designers of the game as well make sure that show that it's important to make sure that there's a place of respite, there's a place of neutrality in wherever your party is, okay? And Hammergrim is set up to kind of be that way. Now, here's the next one, is the Mines of Marcellin. This is the one that I really got a kick out of when I first started reading about it. Excuse me. The mines are a treasure trove of artifacts, magic, and strange jeweled machines. Heaps of spacefaring ships, enormous weapons, and steam-driven carriages are scattered everywhere. Unfortunately, most of them have been fused into lumps of solid black iron. Even so, their outlines are visible, and a Puri cutter can put a picture together for smiths and stone cutters to turn into a copy of the original. But oftentimes the plans turn into the same blank sheet of iron themselves. This cube is particularly well known in a well-known and excavated mining site. The dark of the mine, the rumor is the truth as well. The mines are a source of magic and machines. The mines seem to generate new material daily. No one knows where the junk comes from, though the Athar, one of the factions, suspect that every time something's disintegrated, the disintegrated object shows up in the mines of Marcellin. The mines include hundreds, even thousands of strip mines, bottomless well-like shafts, and mounds of squarish ironstone tailings. The best-kept secrets are which mine shafts lead into the interior caves, where more shit appears. But most are dead ends, sunk into the black iron cube by hopeful prospectors and predators and outlaws. So, and there's a Coriosis, a ancient rust dragon that calls it home and fights the Modrons that come in here to try to organize it. And the Modrons fight the Duergar because the Modrons are trying to organize it and Duergar are trying to steal it. So, you know, if you're listening to me, you're like, if you're looking for any sort of crossovers, if you're wanting any sort of possibility to you know, put guns or cars or airplanes or AH-64 Apaches into your campaign, even for the brightest moment, or if you're looking to go the other way, the Mines of Marcellin within the cube, within the layer of Thuldanin, will likely provide you that opportunity. Canonically speaking, the idea is that anything that is disintegrated, phased out of existence, banished, whatever, if there are no remains of it on its home plane, its home world, then it appears within the Mines of Marcellin, fully intact in whatever form it was before it left. So, dude, you could have a lot of fun with the Mines of Marcellin. I don't want to go too deep into it. We are getting a little bit long on this recording, and I do apologize. But yeah, the Mines of Marcellin provide a lot of so much potential for a creative DM and crossover established, you know, to establish crossover stuff between different cultures, different worlds, and all that. So the third one is Tintibulus. We're not going to spend much time. This is the one I talked about. Take your dice collection, take them from as small as a centimeter to as large as 10 miles, and then throw them into eternal space and have them swirl through space, colliding into each other, shattering into more dice. That's Tintibulus. It's filled with blocks of 6-sided, 8-sided, 12-sided, so on. The blocks are solid, but they're not really good material. So it's almost impossible to live on any of these long term. They're going to break into more fractal shapes as they tumble through space, including crushing whoever's on them when that happens, right? The one thing that's here is the hopping tower, and the hopping tower only just really lives there. It doesn't even tell you who's there. Actually, it does. If you know anything about old school D&D, there's a guy named Lysander. No, I'm sorry, Lysander is a relative of Lysandred. But Lysander, the hopping mage, lives at the tower. Kind of a little bit of just DM sight for you. The wizard who has a home here, the safe place in Tintibulus. Now, one of the things that they talk about is he's able to take the hopping tower and go from Tintibulus to Acanthus, and he claims that the river Styx deposits all the memories that it collects at the bottom of that lair. Nothing to argue canonically one way or another, but this is where you get creative as a dungeon master. Say like your players were playing around in Acheron. Not Acheron, excuse me, Descent into Avernus. Whatever happens, they take a plunge into the river Styx. You're not sure what happens. They have to re-roll characters. What if they wanted their memories back? What if there was something important in there? What if the quest MacGuffin had to re-get their memories, and how do you get them back when they're lost to the river Styx? Well, old cranky mage in the city of Sigil says, you got to go talk to the hopping wizard. Huh? What are you talking about? The hopping tower down in Tintibulus. Grumble, grumble, exposition, quest. But it's true. He knows how to tap into the waters of the river Styx and extract memories and blah, blah. Well, shit, let's go. So, boom, major quest. Either it's a side adventure or a major step along a campaign adventure. Just giving us somewhere really unusual, a person really unusual, and doing something absolutely amazing and up till this point impossible. But now that we're starting to use the outer planes during our adventures, the impossible, the alien, the unlikely suddenly becomes doable, suddenly becomes something we can play with. So this next layer is Acanthus, the fourth layer. Has no blocks, only razor-thin shards, some barely an inch across, others miles in width. The plates are enormous shards of black ice, frozen into thin layers. Their collision breaks them into progressively smaller shards, eventually into needles and then dust. The shards must all come from some single source, and some say that all shards are chipped from the night black bottom of Acanthus, which is covered by a single sheet of infinite magical black ice. The mage Lysander said that the sheets of ice at the bottom of Acanthus is either the source or the final destination of the river Styx. Lysander claims that every memory stolen by the river still exists frozen in the black ice, and each memory, whether that of a godling or a petitioner, a crazed Tanari, or a shining Deva, can be opened and absorbed through the use of a simple knock spell. No one is sure whether or not to believe him, because believe him if he's crazy, or if he's even made it to the bottom of the black ice. But if, so that's kind of the link that I was talking about just a second ago. River Styx plays a lot in a lot of campaigns. Now all of a sudden we have a source for it. Now all of a sudden we have the repository of eons and millennia of memories in one spot. Can you imagine the fun, the insanity that you can play around with? The shit, my brain just explodes with all the ideas that I could do with campaign expansions, additions, subtractions, with just that access of that simple piece of lore. And guys, there's things like that exist on almost every one of the outer planes that is just big enough and amazing enough and outstanding enough to drive a campaign or drive an adventure, or even give you the inspiration to build an adventure around. And that's what I want to do with this series, is provide you guys some glimpses of each of the outer planes. 5e has us looking over here. I want us to open up the door, man, and get out there and play with it. So, lastly on Acanthus is my favorite thing about it. I'm a big fan of Bladelings, dude. It made me sad that they didn't make the cut. I think Warforged showed up, but Bladelings didn't show up. Still makes me sad. They didn't even make the cut for 5e. That's bullshit, because let's be honest, if you could be a badass dude covered in spikes and blades, who wouldn't, versus being a smooth-skinned robot man from Eberron? Boo hoo hoo. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit facetious there. But yes, the one other thing about Acanthus, in addition to housing the memories of everyone that's ever been affected by the river Styx, there's this gigantic splintered orb that floats through Acanthus, and within is Zoronar, the City of Shadows. Within Zoronar, the City of Shadows, is the birthplace of the Bladelings. Bladelings are, back in the day, badasses, man. Just natural-born killers, natural-born hunters. Think of a Gith-Yankee covered in metallic spikes that's immune to fire, immune to cold, with a high base armor class that can go Kamehameha, and all of their spikes go shooting out and hit everyone around them. That was your garden variety Bladeling, and then they only went up from there. But their capital city is just amazing. It's basically this gigantic wooden heart. Some say it's a discarded piece of Yggdrasil, the world tree, that ended up here. They started within it, and the bark of the world tree prevents all of these spinning plates and razors. They end up crashing into the wood of their city, embedding into it, and gets bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger. So you have you have a city that represents the people that grew up inside of it. So whether it's a cause or effect, that's up to you as a dungeon master to play with. But even in Acanthus, even in the most inhospitable one of the 4 layers of Acheron, you still have a civilization. You still have a homeland. You still have a neutral ground. So that's something great. That gives us room to play with the Outer Planes, guys. Don't think, there's too much out there. There's a lot out there. The plus side of infinite space, we get to use whatever we want of it, and we don't have to worry about the rest of it. Okay? We get to make travel distance whatever we need it to be at that point in time. They can conveniently show up wherever they need to. Don't always feel like your players are going to have to walk for 86 days because it's an infinite plane. Fuck no. All infinite means is you don't have to worry about detailing the whole plane. All infinite means is you can put what you want, where you want, when you need to, and it doesn't affect anything else around it because space is infinite. Okay, so get over the fear of that and embrace the creative possibilities with infinite space. Understand that even the most insane alien and unhealthy plane like Acheron, a plane that's all 4 layers are comprised of floating objects that range from a centimeter in size that can poke you in the eye to 50 miles in size that could crush a city. That's your solid ground. You're basically running a campaign or an adventure set on a bunch of D20s and D6s and D10s floating through space, crashing into each other at a moment's notice. Hell yeah. And number 3, the geometry of making those maps is super simple. It's all flat unless there's a trench or a hole. You don't build up, you build down. So you get dungeons, you get caves, you get caverns, you get tombs, you get all the fun stuff that you normally get. And you get an opportunity to carry out an adventure in a state of constant warfare. So lastly, as I close this stream out, thank you for joining me. This was the first, and I guess we're looking at 16. We're taking a look at Acheron, closing out with the Planes of Law. This is the second book in the Planes of Law box set, released in 95, I think? 94, 95? Let's look to be for, 1995. So this will be the format for the reviews going forward. Let me know what you think. Give me some comments. Let me know if you want more information about some stuff, less information about other stuff. I do promise moving forward they're going to get a little bit tighter. I just had to kind of introduce and set up the format. But we're going to go all the way around the Cosmic Wheel, starting here at Acheron, starting at 9 o'clock, coming all the way back around at 8 o'clock, with a couple 30 hours and a couple half hours in between to hit it all. So hopefully I'm hoping you guys join me along this and we can provide some information about the planes and some opportunities and some ideas for you as Dungeon Masters to create engaging, exciting, and fantastic adventures in the multiverse. 5th edition is getting us to the doorway. Let's get through the doorway, use what's already here in the 2nd edition, go through the doorway and just knock the socks off of our players. Allow us to stretch out our legs and our creative muscles, getting into some really strange and unique environments. And we're getting to play with all of these fucking fantastic creatures in their own homes now. We don't have to explain why is this demon sitting here, because he's going for a walk. This is where they live now. So you get access to so many more different creatures, so many more different ideas, and a lot of unique environments to present them in. But hey, thank you for your time, and hope to see you for the next episode. Be safe.